It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant pride.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Hello, everybody, and happy Thursday, and welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. I am John Schmeelk. He is Paul Dottino in the Giants Podcast Studio, presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. Paul, I'm chipper today. Do you know why I'm chipper today?
Because the Yankees won?
No, not so much that.
Well, that worked for me last night.
And I will preface this by saying, as much as I love doing the show, and I do love doing the show, this will be the last time I will be here until July 14th.
Oh, vacation.
Yes.
There you go.
A little vacation. I know you don't like vacation. I do like vacation. I like getting away a little bit. We'll be doing the family trip back to Iowa. Got a couple other things in the hopper, taking care of stuff at home, a couple day trips. It should be a lot of fun, and I'm excited about it.
That is very good.
Recharge the batteries, and then we come back on the 14th. You basically have 10 days until the first practice. The rookies come back a couple days after we return, and we'll be rocking and rolling.
And if I understand correctly, there'll be something coming up on the website at about 2 o'clock today.
Huh?
There'll be some information coming up.
Okay. Training camp related, I'm assuming you mean.
I'm just trying to keep
Okay.
people abreast
I got
so
it.
that they
That's
stay
good.
tuned to your
Stay
tuned to your internet site.
I was not aware of that. That's good to know.
Yes.
Good stuff.
Yes.
Okay, so make sure you stay tuned to that as well.
Please do.
So that's also, it's not just me. The show is going dark for the next 2 weeks. We always go dark the week of the 4th of July. The last couple years, we've gone dark the week either before or after. This year, we're doing the week after. Pearson said he needs vacation and time away, which, we will accommodate him, which is, that's fine.
Because you want to come in, right?
Paul did.
Well,
It wasn't
sure.
me.
That's a whole
I still
different-
would have taken off. He could have been him and side
That's a
tack
whole
with you for
different
a week.
animal.
It wouldn't have been me. That's for sure.
I was fully prepared to actually bring my daughter in to run the board if I had to. But they wouldn't let me in the building. What are you
Fair.
going to do?
Yeah, well, that wasn't going to happen. So, like I said, the show's dark for the next 2 weeks, so we're not going to have any Big Blue Kickoff for you, but we are going to have a ton of Giant Huddle podcasts going up. Pearson's been working his rear end off, getting all these things edited for the next couple of weeks. We have our player interview series. By the time we come back, all the offensive positions will be done, right? Running back and wide receiver went up this week. Next week is going to be tight ends and offensive line, and then D
Defensive
tackles and edge, right?
Yep.
The following week?
Yep.
So all those are going up, folks. Go check them out. We'll clip out some individual ones, too, that'll go separately on YouTube. They'll all be together on the audio feed, on the Giants Huddle podcast feed.
And
Again,
Abdul Carter's Penn State coach.
oh, yes, and Deion Barnes coming up next week as well. He was Abdul Carter's defensive line coach at Penn State. In his 1 year in the room, we got some really good stuff out of him. So a lot of good stuff coming your way. We have assistant coaches with Sean O'Hara going up on YouTube. Those are going in audio format on the Giants Huddle podcast. So make sure you go check all of that out. There'll be plenty of Giants content. Don't you worry. And then we'll be back with Big Blue Kickoff Live at 12:30 as usual, back on the 14th. So, and then the following week, it looks like we're going to be going to 2 o'clock for training camp. I've seen the schedule. In terms of when practices during the day, most days it's going to be 10 to 12. So that'll give us time to do media after practice, get a little bit of lunch, and then we'll go live at 2 every day. It'll give us a little bit of a buffer zone in case we have to do stuff with players, things come up. So that's what's going on for the next couple of weeks. We thank you guys for being with us. You can also always check out the archive of past shows on the YouTube channel. We've had some fun ones. Our season preview drafts, our NFC East shows where we rank the position groups, stuff that's evergreen, that'll still work for you. If you're a Giant fan and maybe you missed some of those shows, go back on the YouTube channel, go into the archive, or go onto your podcast platform, find some shows you think you'll enjoy, and check those out. All right, today we're going to continue our team preview series, opponent preview series specifically. We're going to go Denver Broncos today. That guest will be joining us in about 10 minutes, so I will try to squeeze in a call or two before we get there at 201-939-4513. Again, I'll say this. I said it before. I'll say it again. Since we've gone live on YouTube, the variety of callers has, I think, gotten better. We've gotten some new calls and, frankly, a lot of really smart and intelligent calls. You guys have done a really nice job. So I'm so happy that they decided to put us live on YouTube. I think that was a really, really smart move. Genius, in fact. And now that we're there, I think it's really, really working out well for us here. Big Blue Kickoff Live. I'm sorry. I can't help myself.
I know.
All right. 201-939-4513. Paul, anything? By the way, SciTac was supposed to be on today, but my understanding he's busy upstairs trying to figure out how to pronounce the names of the players the Nets drafted last night.
I don't know that he needs to because they'll all be out of the league in a year anyway.
Whoa, you didn't even know. Hold on a second. Just to give you an idea of how ridiculous Paul Dottino is, he walked into the cafeteria today and he said, hey, did the Nets make all their picks last night? Who'd they pick? He didn't even know who they picked, and he still comes on to say they'll be out of the league in a year, just to show you how Paul's emotional feelings about things and get in the way of his comments.
I am. It was a joke that I knew you would understand. I don't know how many people out there would, but being an all-in New York Knicks guy, the Brooklyn Nets are of little existence to me.
Who's your second favorite team, Paul?
He doesn't have a second.
If you had to pick one.
In the NBA,
Yeah.
if I had to pick a second favorite team, wow.
Or do you just hate everybody?
No, I don't hate everybody. There's only a handful of teams that I actually hate.
I don't know if would I have a second favorite NBA team?
Mine's the Warriors, just because I love Steph Curry.
All right, I'll buy that.
That's okay. That makes sense.
I mean, I love Giannis, so I would have no problem rooting for the Bucks. Giannis is awesome. He's great. I like Jokic. Like the Nuggets are fine. I got no problem with the Nuggets per se. They're fine.
I mean, I have teams I significantly or seriously dislike with a passion. There's about 4 or 5 of those teams.
Only 4 or 5?
Yeah, that's all.
I feel like there's
That's
more
all.
than that.
No, Celtics, Pacers.
How many NFL
Heat.
teams do you hate with a passion?
There's about 7 or 8 of those.
I think more than that.
Not really.
Okay.
Not really.
All right. Anyway. 201-939-4513. Let's get to the calls. JM in Atlanta. We'll try to squeeze you in and maybe 1 or 2 others before we get our guest on at 12:45, and then we'll take calls after our Broncos guest as well. What's going on, JM? How are you?
Hey, guys. Good. How you doing?
Hi.
this
We're doing
afternoon?
great. How you doing?
All right. Hey, wanted to talk about our corners. So from what you guys have seen so far in OTAs and minicamp, do you guys believe it's going to be a true camp battle for the CB2 job between Cordell Flott and Deonte Banks? Or do you think that Deonte Banks is the true front runner for that CB2 job?
I think Paul and I might disagree on this. So
Yeah.
my answer is going to be yes. I do believe it's going to be an open competition. This team and coaching staffs knows that they can't mess around this year. Yeah, you're still trying to develop players. That's fine. But look at who they brought into the quarterback room.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the money they used in free agency.
They got to win games.
They need to do everything they can to win football games. So, look, Deonte Banks has been in the league for 1 year longer than Cordell Flott. They're both young players, right? Flott's coming up to a contract year. I don't see why you wouldn't have them have an even competition. Now, the problem is that Cordell Flott can't stay healthy. So you're probably going to need Deonte Banks at some point anyway. But I believe this team wants to put the best players on the field. It's not like Cordell Flott's some 32-year-old veteran that they have on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
So he's only a year or two older than Banks. So in my opinion, JM, and Paul will give you the counterpoint here, I believe it is a true, legit, wide-open competition. Let the best man win.
Yeah. I think this is clearly Banks' job to lose. I think what they're doing is kind of like they're taking a fork and they're prodding him.
Now,
And
I agree, by the way. If best case scenario, Banks wins the job. And I think that's the way they think about it, too.
Sure.
But
That's why he was a number 1 pick.
How much of a leg up do you give him, though, is my question.
Well, I think he's penciled in as the starter, and I think what they've done is psychologically made him believe that this is a much closer competition than it is by giving Flott a number of first-team reps during the spring. This is to me, it's psychological gamesmanship because they don't want Tay Banks to feel comfortable at all. They want him to believe that this is a spot where he could lose his position.
Let me put it this way.
I don't think they're planning to do it, but I think they want him to think that. To me, this is a facade.
What if it's both? What if it's both? Because I think the way you're talking about it, and Jam, we'll get back to you. Just hang with us here.
Yep.
I think you're right in that they want Deonte Banks to feel the pressure.
Push him.
So he focuses in, gets pushed,
Mm-hmm.
plays his best football because he wants to earn the job. But I think if you get to the end of camp, and Cordell Flott has been clearly better than Deonte Banks,
He'll take the job.
I think he takes the job.
I agree.
All right.
Okay, well, how about this? What if he's a little better than Deonte Banks?
Probably not.
Okay. See, that's where we're different. I think if Flott is even a little bit better than Banks, it'll be at worst a timeshare at the position. I don't think they will play Deonte Banks 100% of the snaps over Flott if they think Flott right now is the better player.
Yeah, the problem with Banks right now is that he has been so inconsistent and so up and down in his first 2 seasons. I think
Flott was better than him last year.
Yeah,
He
well,
was
I
better.
think I'm a huge Cordell Flott
I know
fan.
you are.
You know that. I love Cordell Flott. But the problem here is that if you look at the 2 players side by side and you look at the upside, Banks has a higher upside. That's not up for debate.
No, he's more gifted physically.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. I
The
agree with
skill
that.
set, the toolbox is better.
And I agree with all that.
So if you're the Giants, you want to push, prod, and extrapolate all of that talent out of Tay Banks. And the best way to do that is to give him a prod. That's what I think is happening here.
But the bottom line question
But
is...
if he does get outplayed in summer camp, I think you have to let Flott have the job.
But so then it's a competition then.
Well, I don't think it's a true competition, though. I think Flott has to absolutely blow him away.
So he has to blow him away to win it.
That's how I see it.
I got you. Go ahead, JM.
Yeah, John, I'm kind of more with you on that. I think if Flott is showing that he's going to be a better option there, I think the Giants want to play whoever their better option is going to be. But I'm excited to hear what that competition ends up unfolding to be.
The Giants will win either way, right? They'll win either way. Because if Banks holds him off, that means he deserves to keep the job. If he doesn't, then that means Flott was better.
Unless there's an injury and then they have to go with a guy that maybe isn't playing well.
We're not putting injuries into this equation.
You said they win no matter what. They don't win no matter what.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
And Lord knows Cordell's had a bunch of those.
And that's why I brought that up.
I know.
Go ahead, Jim.
So on a similar note, so obviously when Deonte Banks was drafted, he was brought in to play press man corner in Wink Martindale's system.
Yep.
So a lot of his year 2 struggles have been chalked up to the fact that Shane Bowen ran a different type of system, asked him to do a lot more zone. He wasn't quite as comfortable with that. And so now they've brought in Paulson Adebo to play on the other side. So let me ask you this. If it turns out being Paulson Adebo and Tay Banks as 2 corners on the boundaries, do you believe that Shane Bowen is going to be adapting his system to allow both of those guys to play more press man? And have you guys seen anything in OTAs and minicamp that might give us a clue one way or the other as far as what kind of system he's going to be running?
You can't, Jam, appreciate the call, man. Good stuff. You can't play press man in the spring because there's no contact. So in terms of what we've seen in the spring, have we seen that? My answer is no. From what I got, and Pearson, you listened to these interviews too, talking to all the corners and the safeties and even the linebackers, when I did my interviews for Media Day, those are all the interviews that are going up in the John Siddle podcast. My feeling is that you are going to see more press man this year because they feel like they have the personnel that can do it.
There will be tweaks and adjustments made, and as we have discussed now for how many months, John, the Giants not only added talent on the defensive side of the ball, but they also added versatility, and they added a wider range of abilities within the playbook, which gives them more options to choose from.
And again, I think when you talk about seeing more press man, I don't think you're going to see a lot of it on early downs. That I don't think is going to be what the DNA is.
Yeah, probably not.
But teams don't play press man a ton on early downs anyway. Even the teams that play the most press man play it like 40% of the time.
Yes.
I have to double check it, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
That's usually the high end number.
So you're looking at less than half the snaps. And I guarantee you most of those are coming on second long, third and long.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with the Giants pass rush up front now, where you feel like you can get home quickly, it gives you more freedom to play more press man because your guys are not going to be sitting back there in coverage forever in man-to-man defense because you got such a good pass rush getting after the quarterback.
Exactly.
So you put all that together, I do think you are going to see more of that. All right, let's continue our opponent preview series. We welcome in Andrew Mason. He covers the Broncos for the Fan 104.3 in Denver. Andrew, you got John Schmeelk and Paul Dottino here in East Rutherford, New Jersey. How are you today?
Doing great. How you fellas doing?
So did you guys get hammered in Denver with the heat wave like we did out here too, or was it at least a little tempered up there in the mountains for you?
Slightly tempered, but we're also kind of used to it as well. I mean, like in training camp, most years out here, we're dealing with at least a few days where we've got temperatures that are soaring up into the mid to upper 90s. I mean, it's a drier heat out in Colorado, but it's something that it's a little more closer to normal here than when you guys are dealing with it out there. And also, we didn't have it with the same humidity you guys have been dealing with. Like, I've seen some of the Braves-Mets games this week on television. It just looks awful. Like, nobody looks like they want to be on the field the last couple of days.
It is basically playing baseball in a swamp or a rainforest. It has not been fun, absolutely. All right, Andrew, let's get to it here. Broncos, I think, one of the surprise teams in the league last year. You start a rookie quarterback. You know, they came off a couple years where they didn't quite get where they wanted to go. Sean Payton heading into year 2. But I think the season turned out as well as anyone could have hoped. And here's where I want to start. I think a ton of it had to do with the offensive line. The Broncos, you can argue, depending on what metric you want to look at, Andrew, might have had the best pass-protecting offensive line in all of football last year. Not enough people talk about it. But I think that made life a lot easier on your rookie quarterback, Bo Nix, and it really helped make that whole offense go.
Yeah, and you go by ESPN analytics in terms of not only pass block win rate, but run block win rate. The Broncos' O-line was number 1 in both of them last year.
Oh, wow.
And I think it's really a credit to how the Broncos and Sean Payton started attacking this thing really from the moment go when he came in that first off season in 2023. When they went into free agency that year, 2 of their 3 first big free agent pickups were Mike McGlinchey at right tackle and, Ben Powers over at left guard. And that stabilized a couple of positions, particularly right tackle. Right tackle had been a revolving door for the Broncos for about a decade. And McGlinchey came in and offered stability there that had not been seen in a while. Now, he did inherit Garrett Bowles, who'd had some solid seasons after a rough start to his career, and Quinn Miners, who'd the first couple of years had shown some potential but was still pretty raw. Now, Bowles has had a couple of good seasons since then and got a nice contract extension this past year, and then Miners just got better and better and then was an all-pro the last couple of years. But I think it really starts from that first off-season consciously coming in and saying, we're going to make sure we get this offensive line right and make sure that no matter what happens, we're not going to be able to have to sit there and say, okay, well, the quarterback, was running for his life because this, that, and the other. They got the line fixed. It was pretty good in 2023, went to the next level in 2024, and I think that gave Bo Nix the kind of stability and the fighting chance to succeed last year that, frankly, a lot of young quarterbacks don't have. How many times we talk about a young quarterback thrown into the fire and say, oh, they're running for their life, and Bo didn't have that. And so really it's kind of you look at it and it's like almost like there was some foresight there to what they were doing. Get the line built first and kind of live with whatever you live with Russell Wilson in 2023. And then if you're going to move on from Wilson, if you figure out, okay, he's not the guy, then you get the young quarterback in, but you've built that offensive line in front of him so you can get a true evaluation on whether that young guy has some potential. And with that O-line, you found out that Bo Nix certainly has some capability to perhaps be the long-term answer.
So then, based on what you just said, I'm going to guess that you think the arrow continues to point up on Bo Nix and that he does not suffer a second-year sophomore slump, as many quarterbacks, including most recently C.J. Stroud, just did in Houston. And, of course, they also did add a pass-catching tight end in Evan Ingram, the former Giant, who they just picked up from Jacksonville, who will provide him with another pretty nice target.
Yeah, and I think
part of it is right there what you mentioned with Ingram coming in as that interior target that they were missing last year from the tight end position. Now, he doesn't stretch the field in the way that you guys remember with the Giants back early in his career. He's a different type of pass catcher now than he was in those first 2-3 seasons. He's not quite as dynamic. He's going to be a guy who's going to get you, bits and pieces, dinks and dunks down the field, and occasionally get you that catch and run. Not doing what he did earlier in his career, but that's fine. You're not signing him for what he was in 2017-18. You're signing him for what he is right now. Mm-hmm. The whole hope is keep him healthy because, of course, he had a couple of injuries last year and he missed 8 games, and he's still working his way back. So his work in OTAs and minicamp was limited. They're looking to have him back full go for training camp. But it's not just Ingram that's the reason why I'm expecting Bo Nix to not have a sophomore slump. You've got some young pass catchers that you're hoping can take the next step. Devon Vele had a solid season last year, the 7th-round pick. He had 40-plus catches. They have Troy Franklin, who they picked in the 4th round last year, that had a touchdown catch in the playoff game, and he had some good work in the offseason. Pat Bryant, 3rd-round pick this year. He had pretty good work in OTAs and minicamp. Marvin Mims Jr., who's an all-pro as a punt returner, last year they started figuring out how to use him as a gadget type of target the back half of the season. In the last 7 games of the year, finally unlocked how to get him involved. They actually started handing him the ball from a backfield position just to make sure they got him some opportunities, and it seemed to kind of unlock his confidence, and they started getting him the ball more in the passing game. In the last 7 games of the season, he was actually on a 1,000-yard receiving pace. So I think they'll continue pushing that forward as well. And then, of course, they draft R.J. Harvey and they sign J.K. Dobbins. So the running back position appears to be more dynamic and fortified. You're expecting some steps forward from those young receivers, and you bring in Evan Ingram. So you've got what you expect to be a better collection of targets around Bo Nix. All that is why I expect you won't see a sophomore slump, because he should have better weapons around him in addition to just being a bit more mature, more seasoned, more settled. Because remember, he went through a pretty rough first month last year where he took those lumps, and then the last 3 months of the season was mid to upper mid-tier as a starting quarterback in getting the Broncos to the playoffs.
Yeah, and look, you kind of led me to my next question. Bo Nix, to your point, he really improved a lot over the course of the year. I thought he did hold the ball a little bit, but when you have a great offensive line, guess what? You can hold the ball a little bit. His tools, I saw him live at the Senior Bowl. I was unimpressed. Watching him on TV during the year, I thought his tools were really good. Where did you think Nix took the biggest steps over the course of the year where you saw the most improvement that allowed him to take those steps you're talking about? And is there anything, as a second part, that they've talked about where they wanted to take that next step in year number 2?
Well, you mentioned the Senior Bowl, and yeah, he did not have a good Senior Bowl week last year. I mean, he looked very unsettled, and frankly, some of that unsettled nature kind of really was evident those first 4 weeks of the season. Where I saw the greatest improvement was in terms of his footwork. The first 4 weeks of the season, it was a mess, and you could see that he was trying to break some bad habits early on in the season. And he alluded to this just a few weeks ago, and he said one of the problems early on in the season was he was thinking about all the things he had to do as a pro quarterback. He's thinking about he's got to get his base set. He's thinking about his drop. He's thinking even about getting the play call out in the huddle. And as a result, he's not thinking about what he's facing in terms of the defense in front of him. And that what happened as the season went on is that those things, those corrections started to become habit, and then he wasn't thinking about them. He was just doing them properly, to where now he goes out there and when he's not thinking about these things, he's made these things into ingrained behaviors, and now he's just thinking about the defense in front of him. So I think just the fact that he's now able to get past all the stuff that really can be daunting for a young quarterback in terms of unlearning old habits and learning new ones to succeed at this level. I think that's probably a big thing that's going to allow him to kind of take that to take the next step forward, and then allow some of the things that he's always had to reveal themselves here at this level, because he is an accurate quarterback, short to intermediate. I think I think you'll probably see more of that natural skill set come to bear here this year. I think you'll probably see that completion percentage tick up to 67, 68, 69, 70%, much like it started to look when he was in those couple of years at Oregon in particular. Because once you kind of once you've started to kind of get past those early stages of unlearning old habits and doing things in a proper fundamental way as you have to do them in the NFL, then your natural strengths kind of come to bear more. And I think we're going to see Bo look a bit more like he did in college, where it was kind of that metronomic accuracy and efficiency. And in Sean Payton's offense, which usually sets things up to where somebody's always open, if he's on rhythm, on time, on target, and finding the open man, this offense could look pretty dynamic.
Well, every quarterback loves to have a solid running game. You briefly mentioned some of the running backs before, but they draft Harvey in the second round, so they obviously put collateral into him. They're going to want him to be a big part of this attack. But they also signed Dobbins, who's actually done some nice things in the NFL over his career. And I was a huge Audric Estime fan when he came out in the draft last season. So how do you think this running back core is going to sort itself out and usage in terms of how will they fit into the game plan to help Knicks?
Well, right now it's looking like a 1A, 1B with Dobbins and Harvey. With R.J. Harvey, it's not that he isn't going to have a prominent role. J.K. Dobbins coming in isn't a negative on R.J. Harvey. It's not like they looked at him and said, oh, wow, he's not ready. It's more that, okay, R.J. Harvey is a rookie, and it takes rookies time to get the pass protection aspect of the game down. And so it's third down or it's the end of the half, and you're asking a little more from a running back in terms of staying in and being involved in pass pro. That maybe is something that R.J. Harvey isn't there at this point, and you can probably trust J.K. Dobbins for those situations more than you can trust R.J. Harvey. Now, Harvey looks incredibly dynamic. We'll obviously get a little bit more of a feel when the pads go on, but the vision, the burst is there, and we only saw this in spurts at UCF, but really looking dynamic as a pass catcher. They ran some wheel routes during OTAs, and you can see like there's a real natural ability to him as a pass catcher out of the backfield, and I think you're going to see the Broncos explore that with him and get him involved more in a way that we didn't see a lot of in college. Now, to go to Audric Estime, the big problem with him was fumbles. He fumbled in the preseason last year. He had a fumble or two in training camp. He gets out there in the regular season opener in Seattle, and he fumbles. And then he's injured. He gets back against New Orleans in October. He fumbles again, to the point where they have him carry a football around the Broncos facility
Teams do that.
Everyone, try to knock it out of his hand.
Yeah, it's like a scarlet letter. That's what it's like. It's like a scarlet letter for a player.
Yes, and when that happens, when you get tagged as a fumbler, man, the coaches lose trust in you.
Sean Payton's not going to put up with that, man. No. Sean Payton's old school Parcells, man. He is not going to put up with that.
And Payton needs to win as many games as he can now. He's not getting any younger.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to have patience for a fumbler. They're just not. And so Audric Estime, I mean, he's got some nice ability as a power runner, but the fumbling is an issue, and it can create confidence problems as well. I mean, Audric Estime right now is very much on the roster bubble. He's not the only second year back they have, because they've got Blake Watson, an undrafted guy who played a bit later on in the season, who's a pretty good pass catcher as well. They have Tyler Bidet, who's been on the practice squad most of his career, but he had a big run against Tampa Bay in Week 3, injured his back against the Jets in Week 4, was on IR, but they actually activated him for the playoff game in Buffalo ahead of Estime, and so he's in the mix as well as a potential rotational back. So you've got these other running backs around there as well, and then Jaleel McLaughlin, he's kind of in his own category. He's a small 5'7", 187-pound guy. He's got a lot of speed. He's more kind of a gadget type of back who could potentially be involved as that second guy back on kickoff returns as well, along with Marvin Mims Jr. So he's kind of his own category. Maybe they had to involve him a little bit more last year because of their issues at running back with Javonte Williams struggling. But I think he ends up being in the mix, the guy who gets 3 to 5 touches a game as a change of pace. But he's kind of his own position almost. But really, you're looking at Dobbins and you're looking at Harvey, and then who's that third running back going to be? I think they'd like it to be Estime, but Estime's probably got to earn the trust back and hang on to the football if he's going to have that job.
That's a great answer. All right, couple on the defense quick before we say goodbye again. We're doing our opponent preview. We're joined by Andrew Mason, who covers the Broncos for the Fan 104.3 in Denver. All right, let's go to the defense here. And, man, the Broncos already had a pretty talented secondary, but they went along and they added to it this offseason. They draft Jahdae Barron early in the draft. They bring over Talanoa Hufanga, who's, when he's healthy, he's an excellent football player. Patrick Surtain's already there. They use the draft pick on Riley Moss. They're really building the secondary to try to be one of the strengths of the team, and I guess you kind of have to when you're rocking in a division with Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and Geno Smith, right?
No doubt. I mean, it's not a division that offers you any chance to catch your breath with those quarterbacks. When of those other 3 quarterbacks, Geno Smith is the least of them. I mean, that's pretty tough. I mean, you could say every quarterback in the division is in the top half of the NFL in terms of what we've seen the last few years. And so you bring in Jahdae Barron there with the number 20 overall pick, and they weren't expecting him to be there. So it was a nice surprise and probably really did change how they were going to attack the entire draft when he fell to number 20. But you don't pass up a premium player at a premium position, and they were going to add to the cornerback room at some point in the draft anyway, because Riley Moss, a very good season as the number 2 corner on the outside, but he's had injuries that have cost him multiple weeks in each of his first 2 seasons. He missed time during his first training camp early in the season in 23, and then he missed time in December in 24. And the Broncos defense, when he went down, they really struggled. In December of last year, they were dead last in that month in total defense, with Riley Moss injured and then coming back against the Bengals, but not being his old self. So they wanted to make sure they were a bit better fortified at minimum. And so Barron comes in. Now you're feeling pretty good about your depth at cornerback. The question is, does he take time from Jaquan McMillan at the slot corner? Does he take time from Riley Moss, on the outside? Does he take time from both? During OTAs and minicamp, he was working both outside and at slot. So he might end up being a guy who bounces outside, bounces inside. Barron has that flexibility because at Texas, they would move him all around. They worked him as a star before he settled in as a cornerback, and the star is a versatile position where they move him all around the secondary. So he brings an awful lot of versatility, a chess piece type of defender that really could open some things up. And if Barron ends up succeeding, then it really ends up setting up a situation where you can't simply say, oh, well, we're just not going to throw in Pat Surtain's direction, because that means you might be throwing at Jahdae Barron. And so this could really create a pick-your-poison equation on the back end for the Broncos when you're facing that secondary. So they're pretty excited about the long-term possibilities there.
All right, but I'm going to ask you about the front 7 now, and I think we're kind of running out of time, but I want to go to Dre Greenlaw. Comes over from San Francisco. They gave him a decent contract, had the Achilles, missed most of last year. How important is it for him to be the old Greenlaw for this Broncos defense to be effective?
Massively. Him and Alex Singleton, because Singleton, the other inside backer, is working from a torn ACL. So you've got two guys at the core of the defense coming off of injuries, and they need them both to be their old selves. And they should work well skill set wise. Greenlaw can cover a lot of the field. They want him to be able to go sideline to sideline, like you say, be the old Greenlaw who can wreak havoc pretty much anywhere. And then Singleton is that guy who kind of cleans things up. You can debate the value of tackle numbers, but he sort of makes sure that things don't get, at minimum, things don't get worse. Sometimes there's going to be some drag tackling with him from behind, but over the years, he's sometimes prevented things from getting exacerbated at minimum, and then sometimes he's made the play by being aggressive. So these guys have skill sets that should mesh well together, but they're both coming off of injuries, and then the depth behind them. Justin Sternad started last year, and he's a good special teamer, but sort of got exposed down the stretch. And then there's a young player, Drew Sanders, who they're counting on him developing, but it's a little bit shaky behind those two. So both of those guys, they need to get back to what they were before their significant injuries, because as we saw in that playoff game in Buffalo, when the Bills got to the second level, they feasted. Buffalo had a time of possession that game that the Broncos have not had against them in 41 years. Absolutely owned that game. That's why the Broncos brought in Greenlaw. That's why they brought in Hufanga to prevent teams from just annihilating them on the ground in the way that the Bills and then a few weeks earlier the Colts had down the stretch.
Yeah, especially with the lack of size at outside linebacker, right? The Coopers, the Benitos, these guys are not big players, so you're going to need those guys inside and your guys up front to certainly get it done. All right, final question before we say goodbye. I always like to ask this. Expectations, and I'll split it into part A and part B. The fan base, what would they be happy with this year? Like 10-7, another playoff berth? Is that good enough? Do you need to win a playoff round? Do you need to go further than that? What's that feel? And kind of what are you getting from the organization in terms of where they are in their build, second year of rookie quarterback, what their expectations are for the team this year?
I'll go straight to the organization because I had a conversation with their owner, Greg Penner, back at the league meetings in late March. And he said point blank that if they have a season like the one they had last year where they get in and they get to the wild card round and they lose, that will not be satisfactory. That they felt pretty good about going to the wild card round and losing. I mean, you're obviously unhappy in the moment after the loss, but they felt pretty good about that. When you've missed the playoffs for 8 consecutive years, you do feel like that's a step in the right direction. But a season like the one they just had is not considered acceptable. They expect further progress. So I'd say what they are expecting internally, and I'd say the fan base as well, is to go at least one round further into the playoffs. So at least to the divisional round, I think, is what everybody in Broncos country is expecting and is the only thing that will be satisfactory for this season. So if they go 10-7 and they go marching out in the wild card round, I don't think people in Broncos country are going to be happy with that.
Well, then they better get a good regular season record and avoid that 6th and 7th seed in the conference, because then otherwise you might get Josh Allen again, and then all bets are off.
That's not good.
No, it is not. Andrew, good stuff, my friend. Really appreciate the time. Do you want to tell the folks anything about what you're doing, what you're up to, where they can find all your great work?
Yeah, you can find my stuff at denversports.com and also on the Denver Sports YouTube channel. That's at Denver Sports on YouTube. Myself and my friend Cecil Lammy, we've got a show called Orange and Blue Today, which is 5 days a week, all but right now. Right now we're 3 days a week during this brief little downtime here between late June, early July. But right now, if you want to get the insight on what the Broncos are doing and what the roster looks like, we've got a series of previews breaking down the entire roster. You can check that out on the Denver Sports YouTube channel. That's at Denver Sports on YouTube.
Andrew, good stuff, my friend. Enjoy your little reprieve here for the next few weeks. We will do the same, and then it'll get started in about a month, man. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
All right, take care, fellas. Good talking to you.
Awesome stuff there as we get some insight on the Broncos from Andrew Mason. Again, covers the Denver Broncos for their flagship out there, 104.3 The Fan in Denver. Boy, Paul, I will say this. I am happy the Giants are not in the AFC.
Oh, it's a tough conference.
I think, I'm not sure
Big
if I
time.
had this conversation with you or Sytak when we did our last, maybe it was Lance. But man, you figure the three top teams in the conference are going to be, once again, the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Ravens.
Right.
So if you're automatically the 6th or the 7th seed in that division, I hate to say it, you're not getting out of the first round.
Good luck.
You're not in that conference. You're not getting out of it, which means you have to be the top wild card team. And last year in the AFC, the top wild card team won 11 games. Los Angeles Chargers. That's not easy.
Well, look at their division.
No, I know,
start with the
I know,
division.
I
Don't even go to
know.
the conference.
I know. I know. It's not.
This is why, folks. Okay, this is why the Giants have such a rough schedule, because it's not just the NFC East,
Right.
which can be difficult, but look at this AFC West. This is nasty.
It is. And just to give you an idea of what the Broncos' schedule looks like, I'm going to bring it up here real quick. So they obviously play the NFC East. The other AFC division they are playing is the South. So they do catch a break there. The AFC South is the weakest AFC division.
Mm-hmm.
So they do catch a break getting the AFC South. Though I guess, you know what? You could argue, besides the Bills, the AFC East isn't exactly, Dolphins are still pretty good if Tua is healthy. So I would say the AFC South is still the weakest division. And they start the year with Tennessee and Indianapolis, so not tough out of the gate. But then here we go, man. Chargers, Bengals, Eagles, back to back to back. Then they get the Jets and the Giants. All right, little reprieve. Dallas, Houston, Raiders, Chiefs, Commanders, Raiders, Packers, Jaguars, Chiefs, Chargers. That is not a fun end of the schedule, man.
By the way, that is Giants Broncos Week 7 in Denver.
Thank you for that.
By the way,
yes,
just to make sure we got that. That would be October the 19th, just so we have the date squared away.
4:05 kickoff here in New York. So
Giants will be coming off a home game against Philadelphia on Thursday Night Football the previous week.
A little extra time to get ready for that one, which will be nice.
Hey, I'm telling you, there are players and coaches who still swear that going to Denver is a physical issue because of the air and the altitude.
With the altitude, for sure.
Some guys say it's not that big a deal. It's really not. And then other guys say it is a major deal.
I think it affects different players' physiology differently, to be honest with you.
sure.
I think it's a player-to-player deal.
Well, we're all different, right?
Oh.
We're all different. Every one of us. Science within the makeup of our bodies. Everybody's different. So who's to say any player should not have a difficult time dealing with that atmosphere? I'm not gonna call anybody a liar or say it's useless. No, I'm not gonna do that.
We are all certainly different.
Yes, we are.
Some more different than others.
Yes.
All right, let's go to the phones here. 201-939-4513. Let's go to Sosa out in California. Sosa, what's up, pal?
What's going on? How y'all doing today?
We're good, man.
Hi.
All right. So, I have one big point and then two smaller points, and I'll make everything fast.
You're fine, man.
So
Go ahead. You got time.
I'm going to start with asking y'all a question. Just a quick response off the top of y'all head. Who would y'all say the most electrifying player for the Giants has been the last 10 years?
The last 10 years?
Yes.
It's either Saquon or Odell.
It's probably
fair enough. Right.
Probably Beckham.
Yeah,
Okay,
I agree.
sorry.
I think it's probably Beckham. I agree with that.
Yeah, so that goes into my major point. I know he's had injuries, and I know there's been some friction with some of the stuff he said and the stuff with Eli, but I'm a big proponent in bringing Odell in, and I have a couple reasons why. So the first one, we really don't have anybody that really would scare a defense other than Malik Neighbors. I'm a real big fan of the running game, and I'm going to touch on that later. But I think if you put Odell in the room to kind of mentor Hyatt, I think he will even put up Darius Slayton-type numbers. Now, the money thing, I don't know how that would go, but I feel like if we could make a push for him with the fan base, I think it'll get the fan base really invigorated, and I also feel like it'd be good for the receiver room in general. So I want to get your thoughts on that first.
Sure, no problem. All right, we had a call about this on Wednesday. I will give my brief spiel, and then I'll let Paul give his spiel. Number one, you need to find out what Odell Beckham Jr. wants right now out of his NFL career. If he still wants to play a ton of snaps, this is not going to be a spot for him. You already have 4 guys you want to play. You can't add a 5th. That's number one. Number two, I don't know what he has left. If he was even close to being recognizable to the player that he was when he was here, it's a completely different conversation. I don't know if he can run anymore. It's kind of important for a wide receiver. I will just give you his numbers, and I'll hand it over to Paul. He has not had 70 catches or 1,000 yards since 2019. In 2020, in 7 games, he had 23 catches for 319 yards. In 2021, he had 44 catches for 537 yards in 14 games. 2022, he had the ACL. He did not play. In 2023, 35 catches in 14 games for 565 yards. Last year, in 9 games for the Dolphins, 9 catches for 55 yards. I just, quite frankly, don't think he has it in his body anymore to do this, which is why I would be a no on that. Paul, what's your take?
I echo everything you just said, but I'm also going to throw something else onto the fire. He doesn't play special teams, and he's a depth wide receiver at this point, if he even is good enough to make an NFL team. Depth wide receivers have to be able to give you something else.
And the other thing, too, and I'll ask you this question, what evidence do we have that he's someone that's going to mentor younger players?
Well, that was going to be the next part of what I was going to say. His mentality, his attitude, and it's not even about his money ask. It's about what does he want. And I don't know that Odell Beckham Jr. wants to come into this team or anybody else's team on the back end of a depth chart, seeing 15 snaps a game, and is going to be satisfied with that and maybe getting 3 targets a game.
Oh, if that.
If that. I don't think that's going to make him very happy. And as you just said, part of that as well is how good a teammate is he going to be? Will he be a plus in the locker room, or is he irrelevant in the locker room, or is he a negative in the locker room? There are a lot of variables here that could turn out in the negative direction. So my inclination would be no.
Now, I will say this. In fairness, when he was here, his teammates all loved him. When he was in New York, his teammates
he was a great competitor.
I was about to comment on that because I'm like, when you talk to the teammates, everybody usually says good things about him. I mean, like I said, the thing with Lil Wayne in the interview, for sure. You know, like I wasn't in agreement with that. But I do feel like even with, like, because a lot of the stuff you guys were saying was like, I really don't know. It's not like, I'm saying like bring this guy in for a workout and see where he's at. That's kind of what I'm saying. Like, and I feel like even with Slayton and Hyatt and Wan'Dale, the last season that you brought up with the stats where he was actually really playing, the year before, not this most recent year, but the year before, those numbers rival Wan'Dale's. Honestly, I mean, other than the catches, and Wan'Dale was just getting short catches. But that's kind of my push for it. But I do get where y'all coming from.
Yeah,
for sure.
and so real quick. So real quick, and then you can finish real fast. I would just say this. I don't want Hyatt to lose snaps to a 30-year-old veteran. It's going to be hard enough to get Hyatt the snaps you want him to get anyway. I don't want to take snaps away from Hyatt and give him to a guy that's going to be 33 this year. That's number one. And number two, I agree with you. His teammates all universally loved him. And this was a question that we got on Wednesday. To your point, I did not love a lot of the extracurricular, non-football stuff that we constantly had to deal with when Odell was here as a rookie. And does he realize that maybe he handled some of that stuff incorrectly? Would Neighbors benefit from that? Would it not be great for Neighbors if he tells him not to handle things certain ways. Like, I don't know how Odell views how he handled his 5 or 6 years with the Giants. I don't know what his thought process is there. That's another part of it, not just a workout, right? You have to have a conversation with him about what he would teach neighbors, right? Would it be a positive influence? I would hope it would be, but that's a conversation you would have to have with him and almost be like, yo, Odell, straight up, do you have any regrets from your 4 or 5 years with the Giants? Would you handle anything differently now looking back at it? Maybe he would give you a great answer there. I don't know what he thinks about that, to be honest with you.
I would like to cap the conversation about him by saying this. When he was really respected and appreciated as a teammate because of his competitive nature and his talent, he was also the number one receiver on the team. It's much easier to be that guy and to be liked by your other teammates when you are the man, especially when you like being the man. Now, he would not be the man.
And the last couple of years too, Sosa, and I'll end it here, he didn't exactly really want to show up week 1 and help the team right away. He kind of purposely waited to sign until after camp. So I don't know what his feelings are either in terms of when he'd want to report, when he'd want to get involved and stuff like that either. So I don't, to your point, it's a lot of questions that we don't have answers to.
I would make this concession to close it out. If I were a team in the Giants situation, I'm not speaking for the Giants and I'm not telling Joe Shane what to do, but if I were a team, a GM in the Giants situation, what I would do is probably put him down as a short list. If I had an injury in training camp or an injury early in September, I would probably make a phone call and at least want to talk to him.
That's fair.
Sit him down and talk to him, answer some of these questions, find out then, give him a physical, give him a workout, and I'd have to get the entire diagnostic on him. He'd be on my short list. I would do that. I'd put him on the short list. Give him the diagnostic, and then at that point, if the situation warranted, I might consider signing him. But that's as far as I go.
What are your other 2 points, Sosa?
Yes, sir, and I agree with y'all for sure. You got to get him in there and see what his mindset is. I'll say one last thing about this. I think I was a different man when I was 22, 23.
No, for sure.
30-something.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm
No,
saying?
100%. I'm with you on that, too. That's fair.
For sure. All right, the last 2 quick points. I don't know if y'all remember, I called you guys during when it was the wildfires out in California, and I brought up a point about Cam Scatterbull back then, and I'm really excited for him to be on this team. I think he's going to make such a profound impact, especially because we were really not so good on third downs in those short yardage situations, especially in the end zone. So I feel like he's going to get a lot of those attempts, and I'm hoping he gets a lot of them. The last point I'm going to make, I think Russell Wilson, everybody's saying like, oh, he's a one-year guy because of the contract and stuff, and I get that. But I think easily he's the best quarterback we've had in recent memory, and I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. I think he's going to do a lot better than what the general public is thinking, and even Giants fans. Like, I'm realizing a lot of people don't think Russell Wilson is going to have a good year. I really think he is. So I'll let it go on that. Thank y'all so much, and I hope y'all have a blessed day. Thank you.
Hey, you too, Sosa. Great call.
Thank you.
And look, I know a lot of younger Giant fans, I guess probably not as young now probably in their 20s, right, that loved Odell Beckham Jr. when he was here, would be excited to have him back. I get it, but you just have to get into all those questions. Because he's right. Odell might come back and say, yeah, look, I learned from, I screwed this up. I did this wrong. I really like to, talk to Malik about how he handles this stuff. And it could be great. But, yeah, that's a conversation you have to have. I just don't know what that would look like.
One thing I will say, if the Giants maximize the production they can get out of the top 4 receivers on their depth chart right now, they would be extremely happy and satisfied with that room.
Yeah, I just – and that to me is the bottom line point for me. Regardless of Beckham as a specific player in person, I don't want to take snaps away from Hyatt.
Not the way Russell Wilson's talking about him.
No, absolutely not. Well, they used a third-round pick on the guy. You get to not play him then for some 32-year-old, 33-year-old?
I mean, and this is it for him.
I'm not doing that.
This is Hyatt's make or break. If he doesn't show anything now, chances are he's not on the team.
Sure seems that way, right?
So, if they're going to salvage that pick and they're going to make something out of him, Russell Wilson sounds like he's the guy who might be able to bring it out. Let it happen.
I'm with you. All right, let me give you his thing on Russell Wilson. 2 things I wrote, one for Cover 3 on Monday, and then right before camp, we're doing our 25 questions in 25 days feature that we do every year leading up to camp. the final question is basically like, what's the most important factor for the Giants this season? And the cover 3 question was, what's your biggest question sitting for the Giants? And my answers to both was quarterback play, right? Okay. That to me is what this is going to be. And I don't have time here, so I got to be quick. And I'll go through this again when we get back heading into the season. I'll bring these numbers up before. So I went back. I looked at 2 numbers, Paul. I looked at EPA per dropback, and I looked back at quarterback rating. Okay? Right. 2 very generic quarterback stats that are overall performance. Okay? So I went back to 2011. How many times, including the 2011 season, have the Giants had a quarterback finish in either the top 10 of EPA per dropback or the top 10 in quarterback rating? Since 2011, that's 15 seasons.
No more than twice.
Once. You know what year it was?
Probably 16.
No, 2011. The Super Bowl year.
Starting in 11.
Yeah, starting in 11.
Well, then it would be the Super Bowl season.
Only year.
Yeah.
Only year. The only times that the Giants had a quarterback finish better than the top 20, so 19 or better, 2012 Eli, 2014 Eli, 2015 Eli, and then 2022 Daniel Jones. Every other year, bottom third of the league. In the last 5 years, 6 years, pardon me, the Giants have not had a quarterback finish with a quarterback rating higher than 88, except for Daniel Jones in 2022. 4 out of the last 5 years, they finished either 30th or 31st in offense. It's hard to win with those numbers. If you're constantly in the bottom third in terms of quarterback efficiency and quarterback production, it's a hard way to live if you want to make the playoffs.
Big time.
And it's no surprise that the one year the Giants had success in recent memory was the one year that the quarterback played well. Now, and I pointed this out in the stories, quarterbacks are not on an island.
No, they're not.
So,
and I'm not a big fan of quarterback rating, to be honest with you.
And neither am I. That's why I took 2 metrics, though.
Okay.
That's why I took 2 metrics.
Eli did well in 16.
No, it was the defense in 16, Paul. It wasn't the offense.
No, but he played very efficiently.
He had an 86 quarterback rating. His quarterback rating in 15 and 14 were much higher. His EPA was also much higher those 2 years. So was the Giants' yards and points per game.
Oh, I don't disagree that they were more explosive, but I thought he was very efficient and ran. In terms of game flow, I thought he played very well in 16. But again, that's why I get real wishy-washy when I hear some stats. But I understand what you mean.
Well,
your point still holds.
Yes.
Because you're talking about a time span of over 20 years.
15 years.
Well, 15 years. Right, 15 years.
It's a big sample size.
It is a big sample size.
I did not take a small sample size.
No, which is why I'm not disputing your point. But I thought Eli had a pretty nice year in 16.
Well, yeah. You know, 63%, 4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 16 picks. That was his year. The 2 years before, he had over 30 touchdowns and just 14 picks. That's why I think it was a little bit better. Either way, they're in the same neighborhood. But yes. But the bottom line is they just haven't gotten the quarterback play that they need. And specifically to this year, this is coming out in cover 3. The one thing that I'm worried about that we have no way to know about in the spring is that, look, you're going to have to get in some way, shape, or form, and this is some of this is on the quarterback, some of it's on the offensive line, some of it's on the play caller. You have to get Russell Wilson's sack rate down. His quarterback rate in the last 2 years was good. It was top 10.
I know.
Top 12.
I know.
But his EPA per dropback were in the 20s both year because EPA takes sacks taken into consideration.
Right.
Because sacks kill drives, right?
Right.
Quarterback rating does not get impacted by sacks taken. So I did a quick look at the numbers, Paul, and I'll be really fast. So last year, Russell Wilson had an 8.9% sack rate. 5th highest in the NFL. The only 4 players that were worse were Jalen Hurts,
yes,
and then 3 young quarterbacks, Will Levis, Caleb Williams, Drake May.
Yeah.
And then I found an engine that allowed me to do for the last 5 years together. So cumulative.
Okay.
All the quarterbacks in the last 5 years. But I want a bigger sample size, right?
Okay.
So Russell Wilson's number, almost identical. It came out to 8.7%, I believe. And then over those 5 years, if they let me scroll down here on my preview. There we go. Over those 5 years, he was 8th in terms of sack rate, 8th worst, tied exactly with Daniel Jones, believe it or not. They were both exactly 8.7%.
I'm not surprised.
And the only players with a higher sack rate, some of the names will be identical to what we just talked about, were Justin Fields, Will Levis, Caleb Williams, Zach Wilson, Drake May, Bryce Young, Jaden Daniels. Now, last year, this is the beauty of it, right below him in terms of those sack numbers were Jaden Daniels and C.J. Stroud. In fact, it was like hundredths of a point difference. Those both guys made the playoffs last year with that sack rate.
Yes.
And about 1% lower, you had C.J. Stroud and Sam Darnold. If you can just get Wilson from that 8.7% area to like 7 to 7.5%, which is it's only a 1 to 1.5% drop, then you're in Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott neighborhood. It's a much better neighborhood to be in. So I think we saw in the spring they were getting rid of the ball quicker. A lot of screens, a lot of RPOs, a lot of quick checkdowns if the first read down the field's not there. So my guess is that Brian Daboll knows this. And he's going to try to affect the offense to make that better. The offensive line has to protect, and Russell Wilson has to get rid of the ball. And I think when he throws it, he's efficient. He just takes too many sacks. If you can solve that problem, to the caller's point, I think you will get a higher level of quarterback play than you've seen from a Giants quarterback probably since Eli Manning in 2016, not discounting the Daniel Jones year in 2022.
The easiest way to accomplish what you're asking for, John, is to run the ball very well and efficiently, because once you do that, you allow Russell Wilson, who is an outstanding play-action quarterback, you allow him to do that. It helps.
It does. The problem is that
helps.
The Steelers ran the ball pretty well last year, too, and it didn't help.
I know. I understand. He also didn't have the wide receiver room. Pickens was a little flaky.
100%.
And the rest of the wide receiver room didn't help him a lot.
And the
either.
offensive line didn't play particularly well for them last year either. No, and that's why I made sure I said it's quarterback play.
It's a spider web.
Everything,
it's a spider web.
Everything's connected, right?
It's always connected. The strands never stop.
We can dig more into those numbers after we get back from vacation and we start getting ready for the season and stuff like that. But look, if you want to make the playoffs, you got to have good quarterback play. All right, Giants season tickets, folks. You want to become a Giants season ticket member, Giants.com/tickets. Check it out. You can find us on the Giants YouTube channel and Giants TV, which is our streaming app. You can find it on your phones. You can find it on all your smart TVs, Giants.com. Make sure you go check that out. And I mentioned it earlier, but in case you joined us late, Giants Huddle Podcast, this is my last show until we come back from our 2-week hiatus on July 14th. That's a Monday, right? July 14th. Until then, no Big Blue Kickoffs, but we're going to have a ton of Giant Huddles, all of our player interviews, all the offensive groups, wide receiver, running backs, and quarterbacks already up there. YouTube channel, Giants Huddle Podcast, Giants Podcast Network feed on your favorite podcast platform, Giants.com/podcast, Giants app. I talked to almost 50 players on Media Day a couple weeks ago. So check those out. Those will all be coming out along with Deion Barnes, Abdul Carter's defensive line coach, a couple assistant coach interviews as well with Sean O'Hara. That and a whole lot more. Stay tuned to the Giants Huddle Podcast.
And tomorrow we're back to preview the San Francisco 49ers.
Yes, it'll be Paul and Matt. And they're going to have Jennifer Lee Chan, who we've had on before. She's excellent.
Yes.
She covers the Niners for NBC Sports in San Francisco. For Paul Dottino, I am John Schmeelk. I will see you guys in about 18 days, whatever it is. I'll miss you a little bit. Enjoy it. We'll see you guys. Happy 4th of July. I'll see you in a few weeks. And stay tuned to Paul and Matt tomorrow. Adios.